So people, let's talk about this COVID-19. So just everybody now worldwide, everybody should know what this is, people. This virus is basically, this is SARS-CoV-2. So those who ain't familiar with that, that is a severe acute respiratory symptoms virus. And it's the coronavirus second strain, second kind of, because there was the SARS before that had happened. Now, the way this, just to kind of explain a bit about, very briefly, about this virus per se, a bit of science talk. What is this virus? Because it may then also help in when we discuss some of the other things, or maybe for your own understanding. So this is obviously, as everybody knows, being discovered in December. They say the first case in Wuhan, China. Now that means it must have been around since at least November, if it's discovered early December. Now this virus since then has mutated. It has so viruses mutate anyway. The way this virus particularly works is that it's an RNA virus, so which is similar to kind of like DNA. It's the kind of genome structure. So a lot of virologists and scientists have been looking at this phylogenetically, rather. So they've been looking at the base structure, and what you have is it has a genetic base structure of anything, a strand of anything between 26,000 to 30, maybe 2,000 base pairs in its strain. So and what that simply means is, like, think of it like your kind of genetic coding. So the way we've got human beings, I mean, we would have something, our genome structure in that sense would be something like 3 billion plus. And this virus has its RNA. It's different to DNA. For those of you that are, basically, there's some key differences. One is, not always, but often, RNA is usually singular, DNA is double, although this can also have double strands. Another key difference is that the kind of energy, the sugar base that provides it, this usually is ribose, and that is deoxyribose. People. And another structure is another key important difference is that this it's one of the kind of base, what they call a, here you go. Here we go. I'm not flirting. So the point is that this is similar to DNA, but it's different. But you can search that. Now, this mutates over time, as viruses do. Now, we know that it has mutated. So there's been certain studies done by two key faculties in China, Shanghai and Beijing. They've done studies on over 100 samples, about 103 samples at least, where they found that the virus had actually mutated. So there was an original strand that they're calling the S strand, and then it's kind of mutated along the way into this L strand. So there are these two kind of strands out there. Now, the mutation is so what's happened, it's only on a couple of kind of base pairs, but the point is, what it does is, those of you that have seen the picture of the coronavirus, is this kind of ball with all these spikes, protein spikes. It's basically made those spikes much more effective in being caught in our cells. So on our cells, we have these enzyme kind of cells called ACE2 receptors. Rather, think Mufti just sits here. Think I blagged my science degree. Acha. So what these protein spikes do is they get trapped and catch into our kind of ACE2 receptor cells. A virus then gets inside And that's where it reproduces. A virus otherwise is useless. It can't just reproduce just like that. It's not like bacteria. It needs to get into your cell to reproduce. Um, so the L strain, the mutated strain, seems to have been much more effective in doing that. So what that means is it can be much more transmittable. It's much more communicable. It's much more, you can catch it, and it's virulent much more. Okay, in that sense, the transmission of it. Now, the interesting thing is most the studies have shown, or the kind of analyses, sorry, or this, of the reports have shown that in Wuhan, 70% of the people that they were testing, they found it to be of the L strain, which is the very much more virulent one, the much more kind of catchy one, if you like, and they've termed it aggressive as well, but Allahu A'lam. Now, what seems to be more so around the world is the original one, the S strain, seems to be much more behind the pandemic, although both are out there as well. So the L strain is out there, but the S strain seems to be much more what is behind the pandemic. Now, it's important, I think, sometimes to know a bit about this, since it's since it's affecting all of our lives. What the hell, we might as well know something about it. But so this has now triggered the quite a few Islamic issues, because the whole world is going into lockdown. It's triggered issues like, first of all, masjids. We're locking down public places, we're locking down masjids. So some Muslims have got quite sentimental over this. They've said, you know, that, oh my God, why are we locking? And there's quite a few videos of people crying over this. That, oh my God, the masjid walls will miss us. I mean, I want to remind these people that a masjid is not a sentient being. Okay, relax, yaar. It's like, this is where you kind of like, oh, yeah, you're overdoing it with the drama. It's like, relájate, tranquilo, right? It's not, this is not something to kind of go so dramatic about, okay, that the masjids. I mean, when you look at the hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would say to people, you know what? It's raining, so pray at home. Nobody come to the masjid. Ala sallu fi rihalikum. Pray at home. Oh my God, the masjid's abandoned. Oh my God. It's only rain. I mean, this was the thing about in the Prophet's time. They were just real and natural. They weren't so dramatic. Like, oh my God, the masjid's abandoned. It's like, calm down, mate. The hadith says that there's nothing special about a mosque per se. It's a piece of land. The hadith says, جُعِلَتْ لِيَ الْأَرْضُ مَسْجِدًا. The whole earth is a masjid. So, first of all, the dramatization needs to come down. People need to take it down a few notches. Some people were like, no, come to the masjid, avoid, ignore these bans, ignore these people. And then they've fallen sick. Or people they've known have fallen sick. And this is the irresponsible nature that you're having of these kind of things. It's unfortunate, but gone are the days that people were much more kind of sensible and ilmi and academic about things. And the imams we have today are just like, just about beating their chest. Oh, virus, the virus can't do nothing to me any. And jab paar ke chhod degi, it's like the virus. It's, look, calm down, because look, it's true, the virus in and of itself, to the outright majority of the people, it's not going to do much to us, right? So it's going to be like a cold, it's going to be like a flu, maybe a fever, headache, and we'll be over. But the thing is, we are then carriers for a certain period of time, and it's much more communicable. It's much more, it's transmission, it's much more kind of infectious. So the way, if you imagine it, I was watching a particular professor, I think his name was Hugh Montgomery, explaining it, that he said if you consider a normal flu that you could infect, let's say your infection rate is 1.3 people, if you could take that as a fraction on average, and then they infect 1.3 people, etc. He said this is like it would infect 3 people. Okay, and they refer to this generally as the RO. But the point is that this, now you might think, well, 3 people ain't that much, but each three, it's exponential growth. And within certain layers, it had already reached, in his, when he's working it out, 59,000 or something. And it's shocking. It's like, whoa. And to think that this one person began and is responsible for those 59,000. So the issue is those people that it does affect, they can't handle it. Those people that it affects severely, even if they are just the 5%, but the health services can't cope, because there's, you see, they can cope, but they've got limited resources. And when you get so many people sick at once, well, what do you do? And so, and personally, I feel that is a failing on the part of the government. But I'm just saying that we need to kind of be sensible. Okay, so, and I'll come to that about the failing part. But this is what is going on. Okay, so first of all, with the masjids, I think it's a very good thing. We should immediately kind of like, masjids are anyway on lockdown, and I think that's a good thing. There's no issue with that. It's always, people, you always, preventing harm is much better in Islam. It's rated above trying to bring good. Okay, so daf' al-madarra is always over jalb al-maslaha. Okay, so just keeping that in mind. Next issue is to do, and this is an important issue, is to do with the burial. Okay, now the burial issue has really kind of caught a lot of Muslims. It's kind of caught, they're caught in the crossfire here. They're trying to think, what's going on, what should we do? People are dying, because look, people will die. Now, even if the numbers are not so huge, let's say they're not in like the hundreds of thousands of people dropping dead, but even if they're dying in the hundreds, let's say, like even if they're weak and elderly, but they're dying in the hundreds, the problem is that the Muslim masjids are not designed to cater for stuff like that. And even cemeteries are not designed like that, if you think about it. People do die every day, but they're not dying like that. So they don't know what to do. And so what Muslims have asked the question on ghusl: do we need to wash the dead bodies? Do we need to bury? Can we bury the dead bodies? Or some people said we must bury the dead bodies. So first of all, I would just like to explain that I feel it's important to go with the medical and the scientific kind of guidelines and advice, and especially the emphasized kind of strict guidelines, if I put it like that. I don't just mean if they say, yeah, it's better. I mean if they say it's dangerous not to. I mean like that. So if the scientists and the medical experts are to say that this would contaminate the soil by burying people, then in that case, I would say that we should avoid burials. And I'm not unique in passing this fatwa, and I would say it is permissible to cremate the body if that's the strict guideline. And the evidence, I'll come to the evidence, but this ruling has already been issued. It was issued during the Ebola crisis. It was issued by, you had Dar al-Ifta al-Misriya, which is the Grand Fatwa board within Egypt, with its leading sheikh as well. So the Dar al-Ifta al-Misriya, which is Egypt's main fatwa issuance, and they issued this fatwa for Ebola. You had Sheikh Shawqi Ibrahim Abdul Karim Allam, who's a leading Maliki scholar, and he's also he's in charge of a leading sheikh in teaching fiqh at Al-Azhar, and he's also at that Dar al-Ifta al-Misriya. It was his fatwa as well. Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya, it was his fatwa as well. I believe that in for the Ebola victims, because a certain percentage of those who were burying the Ebola victims were then catching this virus as well. So at that time they issued this ruling. It was issued by so there were a few people that did say that it is permissible to cremate under those circumstances. Okay, and it does not mean that this is, people, the issue is that we associate cremation with Hinduism and things like this. The other thing is there's a lot of emotions attached, so we associate burning with kind of dishonoring. But that's not necessarily the case, you see, because if you think about it, Uthman radiallahu an burnt the Qur'ans to kind of preserve the Qur'an. It wasn't a dishonoring. And they claim Abu Bakr radiallahu anh burnt the bodies of apostates, and they claim that Ali radiallahu anh burnt the bodies of people as well. Now you may say, well, that was just to kind of get rid of them now that they were dead. But still, if it be true, it goes to show that it wouldn't be something that's so, oh my God, so haram. It was done for certain benefit. Now, also, in Islam, you can, if a person had died at sea, a burial at sea just means you throw them into the sea. What do you think in the past, that if they were on a ship, they wouldn't kind of design a tabut, a coffin, and put them in a coffin? They would just kind of wrap them up, put certain weights, maybe stones, or if they've got anything that's weighty, tie it round, and they'll just put the body into the sea, which is just going to end up as fish food and shark food. So, and that's in every fiqh book. You can do that. You can just bury them at sea, meaning you just kind of drop them into the water to be really just eaten by whatever is in the sea. So, but it was about the intention. The intention was not one of dishonoring. You see, it all comes down to intention. The person is no longer there. Now, what's happening? Those people who are opposing this are using the hadith. Now, there is a hadith that is mainly transmitted by Aisha radiallahu anha. There is a narration by Salma as well. Now, most of these come by, there are some problems in the chains. There's some, so for example, Sa'd ibn Sa'id transmits a lot of these, and he is problematized massively, and then there's Umrah transmitting them. But let's bypass the hadithi, the chain discussion for now. It is transmitted in the Musnad of Ahmad, in Abu Dawood, in Ibn Hibban, now this, and in Ibn Majah. Now this hadith states that the Prophet said, "Kasru azm al-mayyit ka kasrihi hayyan," that breaking the bone of a dead person is like breaking it whilst he's alive. Now, they take this to say that Ibn Hajar and all these people said, oh, this means that the dead has sanctity. And I agree that the dead have sanctity. But sanctity is to do with intention. It's not to do with treatment. So some people use this hadith, another hadith of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh, where he's carrying the dead body of one of the wives of the Prophet. And people are carrying, and as they're carrying it, it's moving around. And he says to them that, be careful. Do you not know that, this na'ash, this body that you're carrying is the wife of the Prophet? فَلَا تُزَعْزِعُوهَا وَلَا تُزَلْزِلُوهَا. Don't shake her body and don't do this. Like, honor it. And look, I agree with that. But that's a kind of emotional respect to the body. Like, if somebody had a body here and they started shaking it and it was a dead body, I would be offended. That show some respect to the dead. But that doesn't mean because the dead body is feeling it. It doesn't mean when you're shaking it that the dead body might wake up by you shaking them. And they might go, Yar, what are you doing, Yar? You woke me up. That's not what we're thinking. We're thinking it's dignity. So yes, we agree with dignity, but that's like saying you wouldn't take a normal person and just put them in the ground and cover them with soil, would you? I mean, would you do that with a normal person? I mean, obviously not. You wouldn't take a normal person if they were at sea and just dump them in the water. Is that not, so is that not non-dignified? No, but it's the intention. So, yes, we all agree that mutilating a dead body is wrong, because when you mutilate something, your intention is to disrespect. Like the Prophet said, breaking the bones of a dead person is as though you broke it when they were alive. Not that in terms of pain, but in terms of dishonoring the body. So, and we totally agree, like hadith of Ibn Abbas, you shouldn't shake dead bodies and you shouldn't do this. But it's not because the dead body's feeling it, or the dead body's, yeah, I'm a bit uncomfortable here. Dead body's like, yaar, ye ho kya raha hai? Why are they moving me around like this? That's totally not happening, I can guarantee you. But it's out of respect. But the same way you would not do these things to a living person. You wouldn't take a living person and put them in the ground and throw soil on them and bury them, for God's sake. That's because they're dead now. So, similarly, if you did cremate someone, it's not out of disrespect you're cremating them. You are cremating them for a maslahah, for a need and a necessity, that if it was contamination or things like this. Now, so that's something I want to make clear, that look, Dar al-Iftah al-Misriya have given that fatwa. Sheikh Shawqi Ibrahim Allam, who's a great Maliki Sheikh from Al-Azhar and in Egypt today, one of the leading Shuyukh in Egypt today, and he's given that fatwa. Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya, who's another Maliki scholar, he's given that fatwa. Now, I would say that, and this is definitely my fatwa would be in line with that, that if it gets to that, then taking that is not haram. You can take that option, and it's not a problem. But I understand it's a scary thought, because I won't lie, if somebody said to me, oh, when you're dead we're going to burn your body. Now, you see, I have only ever lived with my body, just as all of you have. So we can't mentally detach ourselves from our body. So when somebody says, I'll do this to your body, we're kind of thinking that they're doing it to us whilst we're alive. But the truth is, that's not how it works. That it works, that we are like our ruh, our consciousness is what we will be once we pass from this world. It's not going to be this body. So that's the first thing I want to clarify. The second ruling, so just to add on to that, as a kind of like a sub-statement, that the government, I've read today that I think the Parliament has made an exception. They're looking into the bill, but they are now, I believe, going to honor an exception for Jewish people and Muslim people to respect religious rights, and they will allow the burial. But they have instructed that I think it's double wrapped in 2 body bags, and they've instructed to avoid ghusl. Now, this is the second thing I want to get to. Ghusl of the dead body. Now, ghusl, people, is simply a kind of rite and a ritual. It's like doing wudu. Yeah, it's a ritual. It's not something that, it's not a life-death scenario. Okay. If you couldn't do wudu, you can move on to tayammum. You can get a stone and just move the stone on the hand. And if you can't access tayammum, you can do things with ishara, by just looking. And yeah, the sharia is flexible. It's not a die or die. This is not a make or break scenario. This is not like, oh, let's do this, for God and kingdom. This is not something to become all kind of, I don't know, Braveheart all over. This is simply a ritual. If they are saying that, look, due to air pressure in a room, that the person, even though the person is dead, they can, due to the air pressure, the body can exhale a certain amount of air, like as it's being moved around, and it can into the atmosphere around it. release COVID-19. So they are advising to not, they're advising just to immediately bury. Or worst case, I've heard that they put like a damp towel or something over the person's face, and then you do what you have to do. But all the people who are doing the ghusl need to be in protective kind of gear and equipment, PPE. The problem is most masjids don't have this. There's only a few masjids in this country that have funeral facilities, and a few of them only have this kind of facility with PPE and this protective equipment and hazmat suits and all this kind of stuff. I mean, who's going to have that? Let's be honest. I would say, people, the Sharia has said, look, for martyrs, it said, oh, don't wash them. People say, oh, yeah, but they're martyrs. Yeah, but it's telling you, look, they don't need a ghusl. Like, this is a greater need where you're preventing harm and disease. So the ghusl, I would definitely say that Muslims need to forego ghusl. And this is the fatwa given by Dar al-Ifta al-Misriya. This is the fatwa given by Sheikh Shawqi Ibrahim Allam al-Maliki. He said the same thing. And by Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya, I believe, the same thing, to forego ghusl. And just to move on with the burial. It's not that deep. You know, the ghusl doesn't really benefit the dead. Okay, they have already passed from this dunya. It's just a ritual where you are kind of allowed to connect with the body, and you're allowed to do that. But it ain't time to do that. You know, this is right now, there's a pandemic. So leave that. That's what I would say. And I would say don't dramatize this. It's not that deep of an issue. Sheikh Shawqi did say, if people want to do tayammum, do tayammum. Just get a stone and they can move around the hand and the face. But I would say, personally, leave that as well. I would say just move straight on to burial. And that's my ruling on that. I think that this is no violation of Islam. This is exactly what Islam would mandate. How do you think people, in the past they had the bubonic plagues, they had so many different plagues. How do you think they were dealing with the bodies? Do you think they were going around, everybody carrying them and hugging them and doing all of this, and let's do ghusl and let's... Do you know that read the books of history, the bodies were just left to rot on the streets. And it mentions that كانت تأكلها الكلاب, that the dogs would be eating, on the wild dogs, stray dogs would be eating the dead bodies. And these were Muslims, but it's just, people just abandoned them in the past. And this happened time and time again. Read Al-Bidayah wa Nihaya. Read these tarikhs of different of Muslim civilizations when in the years of plagues. So that's my advice. I would say that, look, right now, bury, but just definitely don't do ghusl. That's what I would advise. I mean, if you want to do it, but do it sensibly. Make sure you've got the protective equipment. Make sure you're covering the mouth of the deceased, and then move on to burial. And if there were guidelines that we had to cremate, I think right now they ain't, but if that be the case, it is permissible, and it's not a dishonoring. And what people can do is, the ashes, you can bury the ashes. So you can still create a kind of grave, but you just come back with the astiyan. You say mukti mili hai, atma. So you can bury the ashes, and that would kind of give you a sense of a kind of grave, if you like. But I hope that helps, really. But my point is that right now people are allowed to bury, but just don't kind of add to too much of the panic and this unnecessary kind of fighting. And I said that, look, people were going on about masjids. Look in Saudi, MBS, look how they just locked the Kaaba down. Just shut it off. And these people are going on about mosques. They just shut down the Kaaba. Just raggo. They didn't care. And that's actually how that's actually how the world works. You understand? And people are saying, oh my God, 2020 might not have a Hajj. Calm down. So what? It's not, stop dramatizing everything. For FYI, right? Did you know for several hundreds of years the Hajj was abandoned? And many ulama gave the fatwa it was haram to go on Hajj just because of the dangers and things. Did you know that? Including Abu Bakr ibn Arabi's own teachers. They gave the fatwa that it's haram to go on Hajj, even though they themselves were traveling around the world. I believe Tartushi is one of them. In fact, the famous Bidayat I've got it here somewhere anyway. Bidayat al-Mujtahid, when, Bidayat al-Mujtahid of Ibn Rushd, Averroes, the famous philosopher, Maliki Don of Muslim Spain, he writes that he was going to leave out Kitab al-Hajj because there was no point, because nobody does Hajj. In their time, Hajj was a forgotten pillar because Muslims didn't feel that Hajj was important, because they said that nobody does. I mean, it's not that they didn't value, like, don't misconstrue my words or misunderstand them. They still had a kind of symbolic love for it, but it was nothing. It didn't exist because they said it's dangerous, so they gave the fatwa it's haram. In fact, if you Sheikh Ahmad Shah Brilwi from the Deobandis, what he did during the British time was he revived the Hajj because it had been abandoned for decades, if not a century on end or something. It had been abandoned for so long. And he revived the Hajj in India. So, people, if the Hajj goes for 1 year, relax. It's no big deal. You understand? Like, people have for hundreds of years on end. All these great ulama, somebody asked today about Ibn Hazm, Ibn Abdul Barr, the great Hafidh of Maghrib. All these great ulama never did Hajj, ever in their lifetimes. And neither did they advise anybody to do Hajj. Because in their time, they gave the fatwa, it's haram to do Hajj, because there's too much danger. And they lived and died their entire lives. Most of them lived 60, 70 years of age at least, so a full life. And they gave the and they were taught, they taught, and then continue to teach, and that Hajj would be haram to do in their lifetimes. So, what I'm trying to say, and that's like, and these were some of the greatest scholars of Islam. I mean, Ibn Abdul Barr was called Hafidh al-Maghrib. He was the Hafidh of Hadith of the entire Western Muslim world, of the Iberian Peninsula, Spain, Portugal, Morocco, Tunis, Algeria, all that region. He was the Don of Hadith. And yet he would never do Hajj. Neither did any. Like, if you read the great Muslim scholars of Qadi Iyad and all these great dons of Muslim Spain, do you think they went on Hajj? Ibn Rushd, Ibn Rushd al-Jad, Ibn Rushd al-Jad actually did. But most of Ibn Rushd al-Hafid, the grandson, the philosopher, all the contemporaries, they did not go on Hajj. Because of the danger. They just said it's haram. And yet, ironically, they did travel. Ibn al-Arabi did go, but he was an exception. And if you note that he actually just ended up going, he was actually with his father sent as an envoy, political envoy to the Abbasids. But en route, they also he does the Hajj as well. But normally they didn't. So my point is, if for 1 year the Hajj is kind of like suspended, just relax. Don't dramatize it. Don't need to kind of think this is end of times, because in that case, the Hajj has been abandoned for centuries on end. Centuries. Can you picture that, people? Your entire existence doubled, tripled, and no Hajj. That's how it was. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there, okay, just so you understand that. Another thing I wanted to add with this whole coronavirus thing, that some Muslims, especially where I've seen this, where I've lived, I mean, I'm aware of this, put it like that. What they've done is Muslim shops, they've decided to kind of extort other fellow victims of this virus. And they've started to say that, they've tried to raise their prices and double, triple, not even double, triple, quadruple. I mean, they've gone ridiculously kind of raised their prices. I know the government is now prepared to take action if you report them. I would say definitely report these people. If somebody's trying to rip you off like that and they're ripping off fellow victims, and remember, even if you can pay, it's not fair for the elderly, for the disabled, for the vulnerable to have to pay double, triple just because some prat wants to get rich off people's crises. Report these people. Wallahi, I would say that. And it seems to be only really Asians who are doing it in the UK. I mean, Indians, Pakistanis, things like that. I think mainly they were doing. The large supermarkets have all kind of conserved their prices. I would say even boycott these places, honestly. If I'm not saying you have to, but I would say that you should name and shame these people, have zero respect for them. This is categorically haram. What these people are eating is haram. Okay, if they are extorting the vulnerable in a time of a global pandemic just to earn a few extra pounds, earn money. I mean, I'm not against. I'm very pro entrepreneurialism. Earn your money. Seek opportunity in crises. Expand your business, but don't extort. Don't exploit. Do it by seeking opportunities. So, it's shameful. Shame on these people. Wallahi, I'm really disappointed to see. When I see some of these clips like that, disappointing. But anyway, that's some food for thought on all of that. I'm just trying to think what else. My thoughts on this whole coronavirus thing is that I do feel that I mean, obviously, this is a global lockdown now. I do feel seriously the emphasis needs to be on two main things, which I think the UK is not doing yet. Its first, which it should have done with its first goddamn Cobra meeting, it should have done, honestly. And that is, they should have set up something like 100 standby hospitals immediately. That would have been, and I don't mean create them from scratch. You just have to hire out 100 hotels up and down the country. Business is going to be low anyway. It'll boost the hotel economy. Just hire them out, the buildings. Order in, fly in, air cargo from anywhere in the world. The runways are empty, airports are shut down. Fly in the equipment you need. Fly it in from China. Anyone that would manufacture it, fly it in. Everyday flights, PPE, hospital beds, filters, whatever you need, breathing apparatus, whatever you need, bring it in, set them up. All COVID patients ought to have been taken just to these hospitals. So it's a medical staff of 50,000 people at least, easily, 100,000 beds, and the crisis is easily catered for. That's the first layer they should have done. The second layer, which the government is not doing either, in the UK some governments are, is you need to be trying to fight the virus. They're not fighting it. You see, they're just trying to prevent, they're dealing with secondary issues. So when the old people get ill, they're doing things like giving them breathing apparatus. Yeah, but that's like a last resort. What they ought to do is administering drugs that will slow down the impact of the virus and boost the immune system. Anti-HIV drugs. Okay, why are they not administering these kind of drugs? Because they're saying they're expensive, but so what? They need to be doing that. Boosting the immune system of the elderly people. Giving I guarantee you, a lot of the studies have shown, even where they said some of these drugs were not showing much positive results, but they were slashing the death rates. What you would do is, I guarantee you'd slash the death rates by half. If they started to boost the immune system in these isolated hospitals of the elderly coming in, can you imagine them giving them this kind of stuff, giving them growth hormone, giving them these antivirals, giving them these kind of like malaria drugs, chloroquine or whatever it's called, but this anti-malaria drug, giving them these things, you would have slashed the death rate by half at least. You would have contained the victims. You would have prevented contamination. And you see, this is what really they needed to do. The lockdown, fine. You want to lock down, spray down streets, do things like this, fine. I mean, but that was the real thing, which the government still hasn't really done. Not in this country. But yeah, so that's when I become prime minister. You see, I would have handled this within a week. Within a week. By 2 weeks, honestly, that would have been my strategy. That you drug up the immune system. We'll see how many people die. I'm telling you. How do you think? I honestly believe this. I do. It's not by luck that the Queen is so old and still alive and healthy. It's not by luck, people. Luck, luck na hai baba. This one, cha-ching. This one is to do with having access to medicine, medication, boosting the immune system. They can do it. Right, okay, and I want to add a final note now on this coronavirus thing. People, a lot of people are panicking, right? I want to remind us, look, take all the precautions, definitely take precautions. Take, your vitamins, drink a lot of fluids, social distancing. If you do have it, try and stay away from people. Don't try to, self-isolate. Don't make contact with the vulnerable. All of these things are a must. I strongly emphasize that. But two, in this time of this kind of pandemic, I want to remind people that seriously, we do have something known as tawakkul upon Allah, right? Do not, because you see, many people, they kind of like tunneling into a kind of mental death by worry and depression. Look, Allah will provide for you in that sense. Like don't always remember, do take your steps. Take your steps. As the Prophet said, "I'qilha." Don't just leave. Take your strategies. Tie the camel, the Prophet said. Don't be stupid. I ain't going to tie the camel. Tie it. But then once you've done what you can do, ثُمَّ اسْتَقِمْ. Be steadfast. فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. Know that, look, Allah has got you. Okay, do not go into a despair, people. How much of our lives do we have control of anyway? Don't become so, self-imploding. Don't kind of just cave in this kind of catastrophe. In just thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen? Yes, I'm not saying there may not be hardships. There may be some hardships, right? But remember, inna ma'al usri yusra. That with difficulty comes ease, people. وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا. Do not fall weak. Do not fall weak, as Allah says. وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا. And do not let yourself become sad. That remember, inna Allah ma'akum, that Allah is with you. It does not matter what people say. Wallahi, it does not matter what people say. We do unquestionably have the strength of faith with us, the power. It is incredibly powerful. Whether people who don't believe at all, they could say, well, it's a placebo. Fine to them, but we do have iman. We do have tawakkul. We do have this understanding that, that Allah is in control ultimately. So don't kind of go into this kind of this panic spread of mental manic depression and worry yourselves to death about these kind of things. And stop freaking other people out. Okay, stop trying to scare other people. Oh my God, this is happening. Oh my God, this is happening. Oh my God, that is happening. Relax. I'm serious. I can't stress this enough. You will see, maybe that there are some reminders that I'm not saying. Look, I do not believe that Allah has sent coronavirus as a punishment. I do not believe that. Okay, but what I do believe is that Allah teaches us that فَاعْتَبِرُوا يَا أُولِي الْأَبْصَارِ, that seek ibrah, Like there is in every cloud a silver lining. Have you noticed how China, several regions of China, after months saw a blue sky? Wallahi, that's unprecedented. They were saying in several in Italy, dolphins have returned to several coastlines. They've shown in Israel that it was Egyptian geese were kind of walking around. Nature had kind of come back. Several places, for once, Venice was starting to see cleaner. For once, the water was actually clear. And this is a reminder that we do, we cohabit this earth with other creatures. हमने तो बाप का राज बनाया हुआ है. It's our thing and it's nobody else's. It's our dad's. It belongs to our dad. Truth is, we cohabit this earth and we've forgotten about nature. And this is a reminder in that sense that look how beautiful nature is as well. And it does exist, and it is nature's space as well. It's not just ours. So in that sense, it allows us to see this opportunity to kind of reflect. It also is an opportunity for people to spend time at home. People are like, oh, I wish I could spend time at home. Maro up. Mutu. This is what you wanted so bad. Waqtulu anfusakum. Kill yourselves. Right? But no. And I would say that, look, you do get to spend some time with family, with doing things, relaxing a bit as well. I know if you can benefit, if you can switch off that global noise that people are sharing and just switch it off for a moment. If you want to learn. If you can exercise at home, exercise. Do exercise though, people, because it keeps the mind healthy. A healthy body is a healthy mind. So I really want to stress this, because the amount of people I see speaking negative. Oh my God. Mufti, you're not taking this seriously. Mufti, you're laughing. Are yaar, mere rone se kya hoga? What's going to happen? And how do I help this by crying? If that's the case, then let's all get together and cry. It's not going to help the situation. So look, experts are trying to deal with it. You take your steps. Have a sense of tawakkul as well upon Allah. That know and try to seek opportunity in this moment. People are saying it's devastating the economy. It is, but it's also, have you noticed, there's always a silver lining. It's also created so many jobs, drivers and people, and Morrison's announced so many thousands of jobs, 3,000 I believe, and Sainsbury announced this. We need thousands of people to restock, and Uber is looking for so many drivers, and so many, it's also created. I'm not saying it hasn't damaged the economy. It has. But what I'm trying to say is look for opportunity. Right? It is right in front of you at times. So I hope this is a message, because I've really, I know people think, look, I take things lightly. Maybe I do take things lightly, but I just want to say that I feel that, look, I can't, we can't, none of us can do something about this. So in that sense, let's enjoy what we have. You understand? Now we got to sit at home and enjoy it on our own. Asi kalle bebe rovange. What's that? Sada rona kiska maavega. We're going to have to play some Ataullah now. Now the point is,